On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a special military operation on the territory of Ukraine. Military action is a huge expense, especially for such large countries. Western countries imposed economic sanctions. The ruble exchange rate has deteriorated. At the same time, the average salary of urban residents of the country is $11 per day. Russians are now living in poverty. Sit back and let's get to the bottom of this. Russia is the largest country in the world. Its territory is 17 million square kilometers, twice the size of the United States. The country is home to almost 150 million people. Russia makes most of its money from natural resources. The country has the world's largest natural gas reserves, the second largest coal reserves, and the eighth largest oil reserves. Since February 24, 2022, Russia has been pursuing the NWO and spending a tremendous amount of money to do so. A recent Reuters study found that Russia spent more than $60 billion on defense in the first half of 2023 alone. In 2024, for the first time in Russia's history, spending on the army will take the largest share of the state budget, even more than the expenditures under the social policy item, which pays pensions, allowances, and other social payments. In 2022, under the onslaught of sanctions, the economy shrank by 2.1%. That's a bigger number. However, the decline was weaker than during the coronavirus pandemic. Russia's economy is the fifth largest in the world and first largest in Europe. What does all this mean for the ordinary Russian person? Is there a big difference between the inhabitants of big cities and provinces? Let's look at the situation on the example of different people, not the state. After all, it is not for nothing that they say there are three kinds of lies: lies, brazen lies, and statistics. Let's look at the highest paid professions in Russia. Who do you think gets the most? How much does a doctor, a teacher, a programmer get in Russia? Now look at the screen. Do you see the word doctor or teacher here? No? The highest salaries in Russia go to IT specialists. Most often they are hired in Europe or America. They get pennies by American standards. But they live happily in Russia on that money. If you look at the food basket, you'll see what I mean. Recently, another specialty has begun to bring Russians a high income by the standards of the country. Professionals in this field receive not only a salary, but also benefits for buying an apartment, social guarantees, and other material benefits. We are talking about those who fight under contract. The average salary of a military man under contract is at least $1,000. In addition to military and IT specialists, well, by the standards of Russia, earn representatives of the aviation industry $1,300, financiers and insurers $1,200, tobacco industry specialists $1,200, workers in the fishing industry $1,000, scientists $900, metal miners $900, marketers $800. So how much do teachers, doctors, salespeople get? The salary of a dentist is considered one of the highest among medical workers. Dentists can receive from $800. Doctors in Moscow, on average, receive $750 per month. In other Russian cities, the average income of a doctor is $450. Surgeons receive about $600, and nurses from $150 to $400. The average salary of a school teacher is $450. In Moscow, teachers can get about $1,000, and in the provinces, about $200. The same amount is received by store clerks without higher education and the skill to work with children. These professions are on the border with the lowest paid in Russia. Only catering staff and cleaners receive less. Because of these low wages, many Russians take part-time jobs. Some then take cabs in the evenings. Someone works part-time as a courier. Many teachers start to work as tutors. In the evenings, they teach classes for those who learn badly, or on the contrary, learn very well and want to know more. Doctors see patients at home for money. Women learn how to do manicures, and in the evenings do it to their acquaintances. Also, some do makeup and hair. Older people sell what they grow in the vegetable garden and make with their own hands. Most of the country is made up of villages where many people have vegetable gardens and livestock. Nowadays, the format of a dacha, a country house with a vegetable garden where city people come for the summer, is still very popular in Russia. There they can grow crops and make canned food for the winter. Those who do not have the time or energy to do this willingly buy such products from acquaintances. Homemade goods are valued in Russia. Even school children in Russia are trying to work. Many of them hand out leaflets or work as couriers. Let's talk about what Russians spend their money on. To begin with, they often do not have to pay rent. In Russia, it is customary not to rent apartments, but to buy them. When a child is born into a family, he must be registered somewhere. That is, from the moment of birth, he has at least some living space of his own. If a person wants to improve his housing conditions, to move to a big city, or simply to buy his own apartment, a mortgage is available to him. The bank gives a separate type of home loan, which a person can gradually repay over up to 30 years. The bank's interest is usually almost equal to the key rate. That is, it is very small. Even if a person loses his job and cannot pay off the debt, he can sell the new apartment together with the mortgage and buy a smaller apartment. Russians pay an average of $55 a month for utilities. Here is what this amount consists of: 30% for heating in the winter, 20% for a maintenance, 20% for water, 12% for electricity, 5% is set aside for major repairs to the house. For some people, especially in villages, this is a lot, so they just don't pay for these services. According to Russian laws, people cannot be left in a cold house without water and light. The debt can accumulate indefinitely, and the authorities won't do anything about it. That's the law. The extraction of wood and metal is very developed in Russia, so furniture and various repair works usually cost little for Russians. Study in primary and secondary schools in Russia is absolutely free. Textbooks are usually issued in libraries. Parents only need to buy their children notebooks, pens, and uniforms for school. If there are more than 2 children in the family, meals at school will also be free for them. Medicine, including dentistry, is also free in Russia. There are a number of services that you may be offered to do for money. For example, you can ask the dentist to make you a higher quality filling, or you can avoid waiting in line for an MRI scan and have it done at a private clinic for money. Basically, Russians do not have to pay anything for medical care. Cars in Russia have gone up in price because of the sanctions. Now, Russian and Chinese brands are widely represented on the market. The others are expensive to buy and expensive to maintain, but fuel costs little in Russia. A liter of 95 gasoline costs $5. A liter of gas costs $0.25. Public transportation in big cities costs about $5 per ride. Unlimited travel in the Moscow subway costs $20. Textile production in Russia is widely represented. Clothes, bed linen, and other things are actively produced in the country and are inexpensive. Due to the developed logistics almost all over the country, there are railroads. And the most interesting thing is how much Russians spend on food. Economists try to keep track of the cost of the consumer basket in order to regulate the subsistence minimum, the minimum amount that any citizen must receive to survive in the country. In Russia, the food basket for a month is calculated like the sayusi, the mandatory minimum ration for Russians, according to the authorities. How much would you spend on such food for a month in your country? In Russia, this per month should be enough $140, according to economists. Let's see how much some products really cost. 10 eggs at $1, 1 liter of milk, $0.50, 1 kilogram of cod, $6, 1 kilogram of chicken, $3.50, 1 kilogram of pork, $3.50, 1 kilogram of bread, $1.50, 1 kilogram of potatoes, $0.50, 1 kilogram of tomatoes, $3, 1 kilogram of cucumbers, $2.50, 1 kilogram of apples, 1 kilogram of grapes, $3.50, 1 kilogram of sugar, $0.50, 1 kilogram of pasta, $0.50. All this will cost $28.50. No coffee, tea, sweets, or variety. No oils and spices, sweet drinks, and alcohol. If you have to buy this set 1.5 times a week, then the minimum spending on food will exceed $170 a month. Also, all people need emotions in their lives. Meetings with friends and cafes, spending on hobbies, traveling, and other. Russia is rich in natural resources. There are low utility bills, free education, and medicine. More than 90 billionaires live in Russia. IT specialists, pilots, and marketers with a salary of $2,000 with the same expenses can live quite comfortably in Russia. If they spend at least $200 on groceries, $55 on utilities, and $20 on travel, they have more than $1,700 left in their pockets for a new home, entertainment, brand name clothes, and travel. However, a school teacher with a salary of $450 has a much harder life, especially in the provinces. Any unplanned spending can be a disaster for him. Alas, there are many more people with such salaries in Russia than with IT salaries. That is why Russia has a high level of non-payment of taxes, economic, and not only crimes. We will tell you more about this and other facts about Russia in the next issues. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel.